And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I think is really going to be a clear indication of whether or not our market is slowing down are, hey friends, it's Jerry McManus here with Keller Williams, and I'm going to try something new today. I'm going to do a reaction video. One of the things that I've seen happen in my business is, historically, I find myself fighting misinformation. One of the things that happens in our business is that a lot of times people are unduly influenced by what they see in the media. I'd really like to talk today about a particular video that I just watched and some of the things that I don't like about it. One of the things that we have to know about real estate is real estate itself is a local phenomenon. There's a lot of different areas in this country and they're influenced by different factors. So it really does work my last nerve when everybody that I talk to is running around like Chicken Little, all screaming the sky is falling, that the real estate market is about to crash. Well, one of the things that I've seen in here is that this person says the market's about to crash and then gives you reasons why it's not going to crash. So let's start with the video and see what we got going on.
Now in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the housing market and why I still believe the toughest challenges are yet to come for this sector. Now let's recap the consumer and big picture macro. We can see here that home prices have actually risen this year despite the high inflation and hawkish Fed rhetoric that we've seen throughout the year. And affordability is extremely difficult for a lot of millennials and Gen Z, which makes me believe that the only people that can really participate in real estate right now are investors or very well-heeled individuals.
This is where I get my first problem. The gentleman is calling for a housing market crash, but also identifies different segments in the demand side of the equation. The first thing he takes a look at from the supply side of the equation, because we know that prices are a function of both supply and demand. There are a lot of folks, folks like this gentleman here, who point out the amount of inventory on the market continues to go down. That in and of itself is extremely bullish for prices of homes going forward. Now, one of the things that he does do right here is that he also talks about affordability, but he also makes this a very interesting point. It says the only people that are participating are investors or extremely well-heeled, and he sees that the difficulty for both millennials and Gen Z. I gotta point this out, because if the people, from what this gentleman's saying, that are participating in the market are investors or well-heeled individuals, and the millennials and the Gen Z have been boxed out, what's going to happen with the millennials and the Gen Z, they are what we call pent-up demand. This demand is not going away, and there's a big difference between whether that demand exists or whether it's active. So that's an extremely important point to be able to realize, that that pent-up supply is not going to allow for a collapse in price.
So people think that the housing market is strong, but I personally think it's not strong at all. It's illiquid. It's the supply of housing inventory. We can see that it's tighter than ever. And because the mortgage rates now are north of 7%, and depending on your credit score, could get close to 8% for the 30-year, the market is actually becoming more and more illiquid, where there are fewer sellers on the market and fewer buyers at certain price ranges for residential.
For there to be a market to crash, you're going to have sellers overwhelm buyers. One of the things that he just said that's extremely important is both sellers and buyers. There's fewer of them out there. To that, I would agree. But the conditions that he's outlining are not conditions that are ripe for a market crash. Even in an economic downturn, you can still see robust demand for houses, as long as the market conditions can meet people where they're at.
We can see that new listings, they're actually falling at a very rapid pace. And this is the metric that we should follow, because this is constraining the prices from falling further to make it more affordable.
Thank you.
Contrarian view about why the real estate sector continues to stay supported despite all the data that says that it should go lower. This is because some economists think that when rates fall even slightly, there could be a surge in buyers to make inventory even more limited. And because of these robust cash offers, it continues to be one of the biggest barriers to affordable housing. We can see here that 1/3 of US home purchases were actually made in cash about a quarter ago, earlier this year. And because of this, housing prices are actually ticking higher and rebounding from the decline that we've seen so far, and this could reignite inflation concerns later this year and in 2024.
It's interesting because one of the things that I have noticed about the numbers of offers that come in per house, it is lower, but according to this guy's chart that he had, it's still much, much higher than it was at the beginning of 2020. And that's a thing for us to be able to take into consideration if we're thinking that we're going to have a real estate market crash. Even actually today for myself, I had 3 new listings that come up onto the market and I have multiple bids on all of them. So there still is robust demand. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I think is really going to be a clear indication of whether or not our market is slowing down are days on market. One of the things that I've noticed about homes that are prepared to come on the market, they do not sit. They don't have to be completely redone from head to toe as long as they go into the market priced properly for the product that's being offered. So until days on market continues to go up, which I still have not seen happen, that would be a leading indicator as to the direction of the market. One of the other things that I thought was kind of interesting about this last segment that we looked at is that he pointed to something that's very important, and that is 1 out of every 3 homes is a cash purchase. Now that may be nationally, and in your local market it may be a little bit different than that. But one of the things that I am seeing is that in the area that I do business, it used to be an area where a typical offer would come in needing a seller assist and would be minimal amount down. I still don't see that returning to the market. And that's another indication as to whether or not the market is really softening or not, is the terms and conditions that are offered. Almost nobody is getting what we call in the business a seller assist or a seller credit towards the buyer's closing costs. You might get one here and there that gets done, but generally speaking, there's not a lot of them being done at all, and certainly not to the degree that they were 4 years ago.
The best performing part in housing is the modestly priced residential areas. Many other price tiers within housing, especially if it's north of $500,000, those homes are having much more difficulty selling.
This I find to be very true also in my business. In networking groups that I'm part of, I'd give pretty much my right leg to get 100 listings that were priced around the $350 mark. I could probably sell 100 of them tomorrow. When you start getting into the 3,500 square foot home, they are a little tougher to move, but still not impossible depending upon the area and the amenities that are offered.
We can see here that Elon Musk talked about commercial real estate melting down fast and that home values are next. Ever wish that you could see the impact of your investment plan in action? Well, look no further than YCharts.
It's a big commercial here.
So thank you to YCharts for partnering with my channel and giving
Thank you, YCharts.
Now let's talk about real estate investors, a major force driving housing values in residential. This is going to be eye-opening. Investors, they own 1 out of 10 homes for sale. That is substantial because that means investors have a very big impact on housing prices. Investor market share in terms of the percentage of total home sales in which an investor was the buyer was 18% in the first quarter of 2023. Investor activity has tapered down significantly this year from prior years.
Yeah, we're talking about investors and investors' reactions to the market conditions. We understand that the investors, they're business owners. And like any other business owner, you have to have conditions that warrant for you to do business. And a lot of what he's talking about as far as the recent pullbacks for the investors, it's because the market conditions have gone further south. Yes, they were accounting for, I think it was saying 8 to 10% of all sales, but even as recently as 3 years ago, they were 6 to 8% of all sales. From a percentage basis, maybe a little bit, but the overall market, it's not a huge shift. So you see that the investors, they may have pulled back, but it may be just because of market conditions. They're always out there looking for quote unquote a deal, and that much I know anecdotally because my phone keeps ringing with people that are looking to do that.
And investors are also forced to target affordable properties, not properties across the entire price range. They're really focusing on the affordable properties.
I really like this because this is one of the things that he's looking at investor purchases. Now, we got to look at 2 different data points here because he looked at investor purchases and they're way down. But guess what? So is the supply offered. So if the supply offered is cratering, of course those numbers are going to be artificially low. And like he's saying now, is that it's migrating into other areas because there's more opportunity in those areas versus the areas that they've traditionally done business.
Watch for investors and their activity to stop buying residential. A lot of realtors are saying that once investors pull back from the residential market, it's likely that there's going to be a lot less bidding wars and sellers will have a much harder time trying to sell their houses above their list price. And 2 in 5 homes bought by investors are starter homes. This is actually rising to a multi-decade high. This is why housing feels so unaffordable, because even but it hasn't been an easy ride for investors across the board. We can see here that investors are most likely to sell at losses in cyclical areas that have risen substantially since the pandemic because of their low inventory supply. And if investors have to cut losses in those regions, there's a good chance that they may pull back in other regions as well as liquidity dries up.
Let me make a couple comments about the investors in some of the cyclical areas. A lot of that data does skew national numbers. And I'll use Las Vegas as an example. Like, that's a tourist area. And I remember back in 2008, in that time, that area was so overbuilt. You know what they wound up doing? Demoing whole neighborhoods as a result of it. And why would that be the case? I've actually seen it in commercial real estate here in our area, because what winds up happening, and I'll just point you to over in Voorhees in the 73 corridor, there's a lot of commercial space, old stores that were they were demoed. The buildings aren't there anymore because the tax bill for those buildings that are sitting there empty is huge. So the people that own the building decided, you know what, it's actually cheaper for me to demo the building than it is to keep paying the taxes on the building. So some of these areas that do skew national numbers, I would just take it with a grain of salt. I just don't see what this guy sees sometimes. And I'm not gonna say there isn't some of that down by the shore. You get some Verbo or Airbnb folks that are buying towards the shore. They may have pulled back a little bit with the higher interest rates. But there's still a good number of folks that are looking to do purchases, especially down in the shore areas, and they're more for second homes for people. Those aren't investments.
We can also see that the activity for house flipping is also rapidly slowing down. And because home flippers aren't reaping the gains they used to, they're forced to sell homes at losses after deducting for operating costs and property taxes. Now, here's my opinion. And of course, this is not financial advice.
And here's my opinion, and it's not financial advice when it comes to flippers. Think FOMO, fear of missing out. If you guys remember back in the .com stock market, everybody was looking for the next .com stock. And what wound up happening, eventually, the air came out, but the best ones survived. And the same thing is going to happen in real estate investing. I'm going to use that term loosely because I see a lot of people that could not drive a nail into a board want to get together and flip houses because it's an easy way to make money. Those people are losing their shirt. The people that are making money at it are the people that are sticking with their business plan. And these people are not going anywhere, especially in our area where there's an aging population. So you have a lot of the folks that they've been in their house for 20, for 30, for 40 years, and those houses are going to come on the market and they're going to need TLC as a result of that.
Now is not only a bad time to get into housing, to buy your first home, it's probably the worst time. So it's time to get cautious in housing, and it's definitely not an area that I think is promising over the next 6 to 9 months.
One of the things that, because of what happened in the last few years, a lot of the activity, people got in with like ridiculously low mortgages. And I'm finding a lot of pushback on people. They don't want to turn over their home because they got a 2 to 3% mortgage. And then why would they sell just so that they can get a 6 or 7% mortgage? That's what they think, even if the events in life dictate otherwise. They'll stay with a house that's not suited for them a lot longer than they normally would be because of the interest rate. The real estate market really does boil down to one person. It's you. What are your needs today? Real estate really is local, not just in the sense of geography, but it's local in the sense of individual need. So that's the thing that really does dictate as to whether or not people are going to be making moves. Those are my thoughts for today. I just want to thank you again for spending some time with me, doing my first reaction video, and please, by all means, hit the like button, the notification bell, and hit the subscribe so that we can stay connected. And I'll see you on the next video. Thanks again now. Bye-bye. Hey guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell. This way we can stay connected. Here's my contact information should you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.